Post-Gazette that way. He joins, as does Richard Bazzy, as always. Brian, I'm generally a passenger, and Richard leads it, but it seems like he wants me to introduce you, so there's that. So I do that. Thank you for joining us this week. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I got the St. Vincent Bearcats bucket hat on. The sun is shining through the window, so you get the ambiance as if I'm at training camp, even though I'm at home in my kitchen right now.
Yes. Well, you got a lot to live up to, considering the last person we had on was Pat Narduzzi, who made national news and blew everybody up. So there's that. I think the first thing, Richard, that we have to talk about is, and at least this was my thought, because Brian's boots are on the ground. He's there every day. He sees this in the flesh. Everybody wants to make a lot about the quarterbacks, and this quarterback's getting X amount of reps. This is happening in 7 shots. This is the fact that no quarterback is rising to the top and nobody is shining. I look at it through this prism. Maybe the defense is pretty damn good. Am I allowed to do that, Brian?
Yeah, you can do that, and you can look at the extenuating circumstances for each of those quarterbacks. I mean, right now, as we sit here on Wednesday afternoon, Deontay Johnson's holding in. Chase Claypool's banged up. Pat Freiermuth is nicked up. Najee Harris is day-to-day. So those are 4 pretty darn good offensive players that are not at the disposal of Mitch Trubisky in that first-team offense. It's a little bit different when Cody White is trying to make a catch in the corner of the end zone than Chase Claypool, for instance. So it's definitely early, but one piece of feedback that I don't really understand from fans and readers right now is this complaint that we're overanalyzing the quarterback competition. Well, what do you think we're going to do? It's the first one post Ben Roethlisberger. Everything matters at this point. And this is something that you're going to look back on years from now, and you're going to probably want to know the details of Kenny Pickett's rise or Mitch Trubisky's start, or what exactly happened here in 2022.
Brian, I think that's great perspective. And I know you're not really at training camp right now, but you have been.
Yeah, I have not missed a practice yet, so the timing is good.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, it's great, and I can't wait to pick your brain. But I want to get into a little bit more. Colin and I kind of know each other, and we take and I kind of take his professional expertise for granted sometimes. But the two of you together is a real powerhouse. Brian, how long have you been with the Post-Gazette?
I think it'll be 10 years in December. I started as an intern there. Worked on the copy desk at night for 3 or 4 years, editing and proofreading and writing headlines. And then I covered high schools for a couple years, then a couple years on Pitt football. And this will be my 4th season on the Steelers.
I mean, I certainly have never met you, but I really do know your name. And are you from the Steel Valley area?
No, but I have some relatives who are, including a 3rd, 4th cousin with the exact same name as me, which we didn't figure out until my dad and his dad saw each other, and I think he was like 16, I was like 10. So yeah, they're related, but I'm from the North Hills.
Okay, yes, because I'm from the South Hills, and I did recognize that name. But I do, and I have seen you, and I do read. You have some really great perspectives, and you tell it like it is. Which
appreciate that, Richard.
It's kind of like Colin, and he tries to hold me back sometimes, but as you see, he doesn't really succeed at that.
Right.
But I remember you calling last week. When we did Pat, you said, "Oh my God, this guy." I asked a question. I don't even know what it was, and I think you were so blown away that I would ask the question. But I mean, I don't even know what it was. Anyway.
Well, it's kind of nice that I'm following in Narduzzi's footsteps on the show, because I did cover him for 2.5 years when I was on the Pitt beat. So certainly got to interact with Pat a lot. And, that candor that shined through in your interview with him was something we saw pretty much every day down there on the South Side.
And he didn't care. He doesn't care. I mean,
no. I mean, I think
had him on his show the next day, Colin, right? And
he doubled down on everything.
Down.
Right.
And he wants to come back on the show and talk some more.
I think he was kind of like that at Michigan State, but that was when he was in the defensive coordinator chair, so he could be a little bit more unhinged. And if people thought he'd get buttoned up now that he's the head coach at Pitt, I don't think that was the case. And, certainly he's feeling his oats now, and rightfully so with the success they've had. So he's even more of a big personality and not afraid to share that opinion, whether you agree or disagree.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And that's a great point. So I love talking Steelers. Colin loves talking Steelers. We do that. Basically, we really do it 52 weeks a year because there's always something going on. But, you said you went through about 4 players that were either banged up or had some questions right now, and Najee Harris was one of them. And, when I read that about Najee Harris, I thought I played the what if game. And the what if game to me was, what if that's serious? What if he can't go for the first 4 or 5 games? What do we do? What plan does the Pittsburgh Steelers have in place to mitigate that? Is there any?
It's hard to say. I mean, we really didn't see it all last year. He was so durable as a rookie, right? I mean, you could always count on him being out there. He got a little bit of that arm injury at the end of the season, and he was maybe not at 100% for the playoff game. But yeah, if you're talking about him missing any amount of time, really, it's not like they have a clear-cut number 2 back. I mean, Benny Snell has served in that role since the James Conner years, and Anthony McFarland that has some traits that you like, and now there's these 2 undrafted guys that the Steelers picked up. They didn't bother taking anybody in the 7 rounds, but this Jalen Warren's been kind of an early camp surprise, which is nice to see. I just think that if something did happen, to answer your question, Richard, long-term, God forbid, they'd probably have to look around the league, whether that's in a trade or see who's available, because it just seems like the backs on the roster right now, they either lack the experience or, I guess in Benny Snell's case, they lack kind of the ceiling that you want out of that bell cow back, which Mike Tomlin likes to use so often.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point. And I think that, Richard, you and I have touched on this before. Mike Tomlin seems to have, and it's not a narrow view. I actually think it's a practical view. And he did this with now 2 different backs. He did this with the end of Willie Parker's career. He did this with Le'Veon Bell. And now you wonder if he's going to do it with Najee Harris. And I agree with it. Who cares if he's your back in 5 years? Let's worry about this game, then the next game, then the next game, then the next game. And we'll take care of the future when you take care of the future. Do you think that's tactically a good plan, especially with a position such as running back? Blow it out if you have to and worry about next week.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty good philosophical discussion for the modern NFL. I mean, what's the best way to go offensively? Is it a true workhorse running back like you saw back in the day, or is it this by committee that's becoming more popular over the years? There's good points on both sides, right? I mean, number one, you take the Najee Harris, Le'Veon Bell approach. You're getting the ball in the hands of somebody who can, make a play every single time, and that. On the flip side, you worry about durability. You worry about, like you said, Colin, kind of the long-term aspect. I mean, I think that matters a little bit more with Najee, given that he was a first-rounder, than it did with Lev Bell as a second-rounder. The by-committee approach, it keeps guys fresh. It gives you different looks. It changes the pace. But is there going to be a drop-off from 1 to 2? Not a lot of teams have the Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt duo that the Browns have. So, I mean, I think me personally, if you get the right guy, I think you can still make that bell cow approach work for you. And by all accounts, the Steelers believe Najee Harris is exactly that type of guy, given his work ethic, his big body, the way that he was able to hold up with a lot of carries at Alabama, and just his willingness to do it. He certainly doesn't complain about how much he touches the ball.
Like, I don't care about 2026. I care about the Bengals on September 11th.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I agree with that. But what my bigger point isn't really by committee. It's having the number 2 and 3 back that really are good backs. And I'll be honest with you, I don't see that. I apologize. I don't see that. I have seen other backs that have become available in free agency, other backs that were looking to leave where they were, and not big dollar backs, but other backs that I thought really might fit well. I didn't think the guys that we have right now, I didn't think they were those guys. And I don't know, that's why I played that what if game, and it scared me. Now, if you go to the quarterbacks, I mean, I know people hate, but I love talking about the quarterbacks.
Well, I don't think you're in the minority on the running backs. I think a lot of people share that view with you, and we're confused why the Steelers didn't, do a little bit more this offseason, whether in free agency or in the draft, to find somebody that, when you do want to spell Najee Harris, there's not, you're still handing the ball to somebody who can make a play. Benny Snell's got to try to prove that himself this offseason, or this preseason, excuse me. Anthony McFarland's got to try to prove that himself. If they don't, one of these rookies will be chomping at the bit to do it. And if they don't, there's going to be 31 other teams who are going to have a preseason darling who stands out and there's just not enough room for them on the depth chart. So certainly the Steelers will be looking if it comes to that.
Brian, who's your biggest surprise in training camp?
Oh, man, biggest surprise. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Jaylen Warren at running back. I mean, one of these undrafted guys who, I mean, he's taken advantage of, the opportunity with Najee down. And, you throw those pads on, and that's kind of where the running backs get their time to shine, because it's not full, football-like, and you're probably not going to take a huge hit, but you can bounce off people and draw some oohs and ahs from the crowd up there at St. Vincent. One guy who I think is pretty interesting, and he's one of those guys who just doesn't go away, is Robert Spillane. I mean, last time we were in Latrobe, he was just fighting and scratching to be on the roster. And when I talked to him on report day and brought that up, he said, I'm still fighting and scratching. The unspoken part is I want to be the starter, right? I want to overtake Devin Bush or Miles Jack. I don't think you're going to overtake the guy they just signed this offseason. So it kind of comes down to that classic, overachiever who didn't get picked at all to the top 10 guy who hasn't lived up to expectations. And Spillane, I know people have seen him in real games struggle in coverage, but he was telling me early on in camp that he kind of took some unconventional approaches this offseason. He trains with his eyes closed. He runs routes like a receiver or a tight end, I suppose, to kind of mimic what he's going to see as an inside linebacker in coverage. So he really seems to want it. He's not content to just be a special teams thumper. And if he can kind of figure it out, that'll put some pressure on Bush for sure.
Answer me this, because this question has just been intriguing me. Everybody says Stephon Tuitt retires, right? And we get that. We understand it. It's protracted out, probably longer than it should have been. But Cam Hayward is there, and Tyson Alualu is there, and you go ahead and get Ogunjobi, and people think, okay, 1, 2, 3, here we go. Am I all right to not think that it's a slam dunk that Alualu will come back, because he's north of 30 years old. He's already injured in camp. And that whole default that Tyson Alualu is just going to be fine, is going to make it through a year. I got to see it before I believe it. I'm really worried about that position and that guy, not because of his preparation, just because age wins a lot of time, man.
I don't think you're in the wrong at all, Colin. And I mean, just look at where he is right now. He's on the PUP list. He's unable to practice, and that everybody's kind of downplayed that, some swelling in the knee, but those are the things that happen when you're 34, right, and playing on the D line. So, but I will say, I think the Steelers have kind of guarded against that themselves with all they've done to add to that. I think the D line is probably the single deepest group on the team right now. When you talk about the top end talent from Cam, the young guys that they've brought in Isaiah Loudermilk, DeMarvin Leal, the kind of in between veterans, Chris Wormley and Larry Ogunjobi. They went out and signed him. I don't know if he's Alu insurance or if he's somebody who's going to be playing next to him when they're in that 3-4, which they hardly do anymore anyway. But
right.
Teams are going to try to run the ball on the league's worst rushing defense. You might need to get in that mode. So, no, I mean, Alualu's he's got to show it. I wouldn't be surprised if this is maybe his last year in the NFL. He's had his kids up with him a lot up there in St. Vincent at camp. It's his last year under contract. You kind of get the sense from guys like that. All right, I know that, my days are numbered a little bit in this league. So he's a really good dude. Hopefully he can come back strong, but I wouldn't blame anybody for being concerned at his age and coming off a major injury. You're going to need to have some other answers there just in case.
So that's a great point. And he is a great guy, and he does come in here. And so we all know him.
Yeah, a Wexford guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He really is a good guy. So I wish him the best. But I do like everything. I love our defense. I just, and somebody, and I think Colin and I have even talked about it, when people say to me, I don't understand, really looking at what we have now, I think we have the potential to win the division. I really do. And I think that, and this is my prediction, I predict that Joe, what's his name?
Yeah, you can't stand him. Why do you hate Joe Burrow so much?
I think it was the suit he wore to the Super Bowl. I think that
now you're in the minority. I don't think anybody. There's not too many Joe Burrow disbelievers out there.
Here, you want to know? Here's the backstory here, Brian. Richard loved him. He was okay with him. He thought he was good. Then the week, because you have so much time to kill and media to do, the week between the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl, Richard did a total 180 and went south on him because he wore these trendy sunglasses, got all Namath on people, and Richard thought he was turned into a total phony in 5 days time. That is the absolute truth. Am I wrong about that, Richard?
I wish you were, but you're not. As a matter of fact, these glasses were mimicked from him. So I did like it. But
a little too much swag for Joe Burrow for your taste.
Yeah, a little. Did you see the suit? Come on, Joe. Win the game. If he would have won the game, no problem, but he didn't. So I love the Steelers defense. I love everything about them. And people say to me, what about the quarterback? I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters whether it's Trubisky or Pickett. I don't think it matters. And what matters to me more than anything, and you're the pro, I sell cars. So I just have a lot of opinions. But the biggest holdback I have on that is it's not positionally, it's not a quarterback, it's not the D-line. I think we're solid. I love Brian Flores and addition to the defense. I love our defensive coordinator. I love everything except one thing. And it's not that I don't love this one thing, it's that I question it. And that is the offensive coordinator. So I'm concerned that might be our only flaw. It could be, and here's why. And I'd really like your input on this. I thought last year when I saw Mason Rudolph's interview this year, and he was talking about, I'm suited for Matt Canada's offense. He likes a downfield offense, et cetera, et cetera. And I started to hear about all that. And then I started to hear that Matt Canada, the reason he was calling, 2-yard pass plays when it was 3rd and 20 was because basically blamed Ben, that Ben didn't have the ability to go downfield. But then I would watch Ben, and Ben could go downfield. So I didn't know if the lack of production from that offense was because he was trying to call plays around what Ben's supposed weaknesses were, or if that was just him. Because I think that if, in fact, he is a great offensive coordinator, I think he has the tools to win.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Maybe we won't have a great answer for that until one of those guys does a tell-all about the 2021 season, right? I mean, I think we always kind of assume there'd be some level of friction, and you could sense it at times in their interviews. Even though everybody fell on their sword, it almost became comical each week how much they were doing. So, I think, to your point, I think Ben could go downfield at times. I don't think he could do it as consistently as he once did. I think that hurt the offense. I think the play calling hurt the offense. I think the offensive line hurt the offense. So that's really where I'm at. I've got questions about basically every level of that operation, from quarterback to the guys blocking for him to the guys catching for him. So I agree with you. I think the defense is going to be really good. I think it's going to be an elite unit in the league with that core that they have, the role players around them. I'm not concerned about them bouncing back from 2021. I'm lukewarm on the offense. And that's why I think talk of division titles, making a run in the playoffs, the quarterback always matters. I think there's a ceiling sort of that they can't really reach until they find that guy.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I do like both. I like Trubisky and I like Pickett. I really do. Again, and you see this, and I'm sure you've probably seen, it's very hard, I'm sure, to change the speed going from college to the NFL. Speed of the game changes, they say. I think part of what Kenny's feeling right now is probably just an adjustment period. And to be fair, they haven't even had 2 full weeks in practice yet.
Yeah, so, that's the society we're in, right? We need to figure everything out the day that it happens, the second that it happens, where there's not as much patience to let it play out. But I've already seen Pickett improve, and I think it's human nature. You go from being the alpha dog, not just on a team, but probably in an entire conference of college football, and then you come here and you're not going to have that same level of confidence and comfort. Really, really curious to see what he does in those preseason game settings, because being a gamer is a real thing in football. So people, I do think, lose sight sometimes when we're praising Mason Rudolph or we're down on Trubisky or Pickett. This is practice that we're watching at the end of the day.
I just have one more question for Brian, but this one is, it borders on philosophical, I guess. In the last, 72 hours, really, it's only been, Mike Tomlin has had this revelation in which he's active on Instagram. He's interviewing people. I think we've seen, Brian, more personality from Mike Tomlin in the last week than we've seen in the last 5 years on social media. Do you lend that to Ben's not around anymore? Do you lend it to it's a different atmospherically, it's different around the team? Like, this is a guy that he's in this a decade and a half now, and all of a sudden he presents himself and comports himself differently on social media. And it's sudden. Like, it's totally different. Why is that?
Man, I hesitate to try to crawl in Mike Tomlin's head, but I guess I will analyze him probably in the same way that he would with a lot of his players and does with us when he meets with us. I think this is maybe just happening organically, as he would put it. He's 50 now. He turned 50 in March. He's at a little different place as a dad. I think, 2 of his kids are playing college ball, and I think his daughter is getting close to college age. He's 15 years in with the Steelers, and maybe there is something to Ben was the face of this team from the time I got here till the time he stepped away. I don't know that he quite wants to embrace that part of it, but maybe it's just natural. Maybe it's just things feel a little bit different around here. I'm just kind of growing with. He's kind of an old guy too. Like, he looks at himself like a dinosaur, probably, with the whole social media aspect of it. And like anybody, they want to try to grow a little bit, get involved with some other stuff. Maybe his kids and his players and people are pressuring him to do a little bit more on it, and he seems to be having fun. So every time you talk to him and he gets one of those big picture questions of how long do you want to do this, he kind of brings up when I stop enjoying it, when I stop having the passion for it, that's when I'll be done. And this, these little things that you kind of look at and go, why? Maybe it's just a signal that he does.
Yeah, it's so striking to me because he went from a deep aversion to it to a full embrace of it, and there didn't seem to be much of a middle ground.
The Twitter thing kind of came along slowly. He started tweeting a little bit more. I think it was around the combine time. It was hey, go check out my son's newest song. I'm like,
right.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And my daughter did well. My daughter did very well in a gymnastics competition and things like that. But now he's interviewing people on Instagram. It's crazy.
Yeah, he was dipping his toe in the water, and I guess he liked how it felt.
Is that what you think, Colin? What do you think the reason is?
I do think that he feels as if there is this cloud. Some will call it a dark cloud. Some will just make it a cloud. Some will think it's just a presence. I think he now thinks he's the face of the franchise even more, and he doesn't have to split that with the quarterback.
Yeah,
I think some of that's true.
Said for that, and that was going to lead me to my next question for Brian. Brian, what do you feel? Do you feel a lighter attitude in camp? Does it seem different to you?
I was thinking about that today. I mean, not really. It feels basically the same. The only other, it's my 4th season. The only other time I was at training camp in St. Vincent was 2019. And, despite 2 years of the pandemic and everything being different and just off kilter, this part of it really does feel similar. I mean, the quarterback competition is unprecedented for Tomlin. But, I mean, even when Ben was there, you had the battle for the backup quarterback. You had him taking days off and guys splitting reps. So it's not like it feels tremendously different to me. Maybe it will when we're back in the locker room during the regular season, and that guy in the corner there who has the sort of commanding presence is not there. But even by the end of his career, I think he was kind of low key. Kind of did his thing, and I think he's even spoken about this, and plenty of his teammates have. The guys he came in with were all gone by the end. I mean, he was so separate from everything. He got along well with Juju, I think, and certainly took to Freiermuth and even Kendrick Green. He was mentoring him a little bit last year, but he was kind of his own figure in a way, just based on the age, the experience, the accomplishments that, removing him from the equation. It's not completely different. At least it doesn't feel that way to me.
Very interesting. You mentioned Juju. I feel like I wish we would have kept him. I felt like at $8 million, he was a bargain.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, especially now with the kind of uncertainty. But I'll tell you what, guys, I mean, this receiving group that they have, I think it's deeper than the one they took into preseason last year. And you'll see it, next week? Is it Seattle or the Jaguars are the first game? I can't remember the preseason schedule. But I think you'll see these guys making plays. I mean, we're hearing from Anthony Miller. To go back to your earlier question, a surprise. He wasn't on my radar a lot, but you can see why he was a second-round pick and somebody who had little bit of NFL success before he kind of washed out of Chicago and then Houston. He looks the part right now. And even just going down the line, there's a bunch of guys in that group who can make tough catches, who can get downfield, get behind the defense, especially when you factor in the two rookies. So, I think there were some players who didn't necessarily belong on an NFL field last year in training camp. That is not the case at all with the plethora of pass catchers they have now.
So what does that do to Deontay?
That's the many $1 million question, $20 million question. That seems to kind of be the break-even point right now. There's the receivers this offseason who got more than 20, and there's the ones that got less. So I'm sure he wants to be on one side of that aisle, and I don't know if the Steelers think he is.
Do you think they'll sign him?
I still lean toward no. I mean, you've been seeing some more, predictions for that from people who are kind of on the fringes of the NFL media, and not quite the Schefters and Rappaports of the world, but some other folks saying this is moving in a good direction. But our Jerry Dulac of the Post-Gazette said they are still miles apart. So that's kind of what I assumed the case to be. And, that's what I would think too, just based on the way they've operated with receivers and the way this market has blown up.
Colin, are they going to sign him?
I think that he ends up taking a bridge deal and takes it like a 3-year deal and bets on himself that he'll be better than one of the rookie receivers and Claypool whenever it comes time for that next contract to come due. He doesn't need to break the bank right now. He can in that next one. I think that he agrees to like a 3-year deal. Yeah, I think they do. What
would you do if you were Omar?
I tell him, here's my firm number. It's about 19.5 or so, or 20 at most.
Number. That's a big
number. It isn't. Well, it's actually not. I think it's a number commensurate with his talent level when measured against the other people in the National Football League playing his position.
I mean, I saw something posted the other day that compared him to his numbers to Debo in San Francisco. And I was surprised by those numbers because his numbers eclipsed Debo Samuel's.
But Debo Samuel's been used as a rusher so much. That's an apples to oranges almost.
I mean, it really is. And I looked at it and I thought, wait, how do you do that?
You can make the numbers say whatever you want the numbers to say.
Honestly, but I fell into that. So I was guilty of that. But then I look at it and I say, man, he went good year, okay year, great year, bad year. I just think he's too inconsistent. I don't think you can give him anything long-term, to your point, Colin, about a short-term deal. But I just don't even know 3-year deal seems to be too much for me, especially when you have a guy like Pickens and everybody else in camp.
Well, camp's one thing, a lot of guys came in here and were supposed to be really good. Yeah. Let's just see them do it when the games really count though, too. So, but yeah, well, that's all I have for Brian. He's been absolutely wonderful.
Brian, you're great. And I really appreciate your perspectives and your insights to camp. I look forward to it. Are you back out there today or tomorrow?
So I was actually telling Colin off air, my wife is due with our second child, like any hour now, potentially. So I'm going to be probably away from St. Vincent for a little bit, but I don't like missing stuff on the beat. So I'm not going to rush back, but certainly I'll be, out there as soon as possible, as long as everything's going smoothly on the home front, hopefully.
God bless.
Yeah.
God bless. Great time of your life. Enjoy.
Acrisure Batko about to be born. So big time, big day for Brian.
I was going to say Najee if it's a boy, Minka if it's a girl. We'll see.
There we go.
Thank you for taking the time with us, Colin.
All right.
Love you.
We'll see you.
Thank you.